Musk tweeting that Trump would have lost the election without his support. Here now for more is Tesla Bull. That's how you're being described out of Dan Ives of Wedbush. You just launched the Ives ETF, which I haven't had a chance to congratulate you on. But so let's talk about why Tesla shares are down so much on the spat between him and the president.
I mean, there's a view that the battle here going on between Musk and Trump, that this is going to continue to sort of, increase. And what that ultimately does is that autonomous and the regulatory vision, does Trump now not start to play nice in the sandbox with Musk?
I see.
So it really comes down to a big piece here is saying, does this beef between Musk and Trump actually continue to increase? And then the positive things you expected from an autonomous perspective and regulatory, now that's off the table because of what's happening here.
Right, so it's not so much about the EV mandate, which, as our last guest suggested, was always most likely to go away, and is, as Musk said, it's not even what he was, if we take him at his word, focused on in the bill. But you're saying, look, this is what people were worried about a couple months ago, that if Musk was too close to the administration, they would just do his bidding in terms of autonomous. And we had the video this week that was released of the pedestrian fatality, which is raising questions once again about whether their camera-based technology is the superior way to go, or enough of a way to go versus LiDAR that it should be kind of broadly rolled out. So at the very moment that that's in the spotlight, here goes Elon Musk from the administration, potentially with the administration's ire.
Yeah, I mean, the timing is obviously very head-scratching in terms of Musk just going aggressively, right, in terms of the shot across the bow. And obviously, next week, you have the launch of Cybercab RoboTaxis in Austin. So look, friends fight. So again, I think this is not one that you could basically say that's going to continue to get worse and worse, but clearly there's a line in the sand here. Musk has taken a stance, but I think the broader view, the reason Tesla stock's off the way it is, and I think overdone, is because the view that this means that Trump is not going to play nice when it comes to regulatory, autonomous, and a big part of the view that was going to be a huge positive, and I still believe it is.
What we were told by sources is that Sergio Gore, an official within the White House, waited until Musk's Doge tenure had ended. What has happened in the last few hours is the president has said that Musk left Doge because he was asked by the president to leave. I'm tallying all of this together in real time.
He had to leave at a certain point because of his designation as a special government employee,
which is capped at a certain number of days anyway, but we're just going off what is said publicly by the President of the United States. When Musk left Doge, Sergio Gore, this official, as our sources explained to us, and others within the White House, basically, who are not fans of Elon Musk, saw Jared Isaacman as being closely associated with Elon Musk. We can get into that, and moved to influence the president to cancel that nomination. The White House is officially saying that and citing Jared Isaacman's historic affiliation with the Democratic Party, as well as donations to him.
Right.
That's a SpaceX relationship we're talking about.
Well, and we should note that there have been other people within the Trump administration, and indeed President Trump himself, who in the past has donated to Democrats as well.
Sure.
He talked about that when he ran for president in 2016.
Jared Isaacman went to space twice. He funded those activities himself, but through a financial transaction with SpaceX.
Yeah.
We should talk about Tesla, which is the public proxy for what's happening.
It's
but
getting crushed right now.
What you need to know is that SpaceX, since the year 2000,
down about
has had
16%.
Tesla is down, and I think at one point in the session was down 18%, on track for its biggest drop intraday in 4 years. Like, this is serious stuff. SpaceX and Tesla over the last 25 years have had about $25 billion in government subsidies, grants, contracts, including in SpaceX's context with the defense apparatus of this country.
Right.
And what the president has said, I've got the quote if you allow me to pull it up.
Please.
Is the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's governmental subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it.
Well, Ed, I'll pose the question to you. Maybe Biden didn't do it because SpaceX was the only game out there.
SpaceX is the only game out there commercially, insofar as it dominates the vast majority of payload, human and non-human, from Earth into space. And I go back to the point that it is not just grants that NASA issues for development, but contracts with the defense apparatus of this country.
Let's begin with this feud between the president and Elon Musk. Their differences over the Trump tax and spending cuts bill extending into those back and forth posts on social media yesterday about other issues, too. According to NBC News this morning, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles says there are no plans for a call today between Trump and Musk, and that refutes a report by Politico, which says otherwise. ABC, John Carl, Jim, got him on the phone. Trump said he's not interested at this time in talking to Musk.
Well, look, I think that we always speak in terms of cards because of the Zelensky craziness. And I don't know. I think that Musk has a lot of money, but I do think the president has the cards. David, you studied Musk. A lot of what Musk does is offer a superior product to governments worldwide. But a superior product doesn't necessarily win if you don't want it to. You can put your finger on the scale. And I think that there's too many. He's way at risk here, dealing with a president who is not necessarily, who kind of has a very close relationship with the Justice Department.
And not to mention is quite vindictive when it comes to his enemies, certainly, or perceived enemies. Yeah, Jim, I mean, obviously, along with everybody else, just kind of watched in wonderment, not necessarily fully surprised at what we saw yesterday, although when you go Epstein, it's not clear to me you ever come back from that in terms of repairing a relationship.
Keith, you've owned Tesla. You've loved this company. Again, yesterday it was down 15%. Were you shopping this morning? Tell me what you were doing yesterday at around 3:58 p.m.
Well, part of me was saying, gosh darn it, why can't we just have a civil discussion and see these two guys with big, strong egos work things out? But the trader in me was saying, all right, I'm going shopping. And, you know, I wanted to check off all the boxes. Do I still believe in robotics? Do I still believe in all the things Craig just mentioned, the delivery, the intelligence, the energy? And the answer to those things was yes. So I have purchased more shares. I intend to keep buying more shares because as acrimonious as the relationship is, Liz, from an investing perspective, that doesn't obviate the technology. It doesn't negate the way he's impacting our world and the course that humanity is taking. So I'm going to continue to buy more shares if I'm smart enough.
Tesla is Gene Munster, Deepwater Asset Management managing partner. And Gene, there was a massive and hard and fast sell-off yesterday. A little bit of a rebound this morning, up by about 5%. But you're talking about more than $100 billion that was sold off instantaneously as this happened. Was that an overreaction in your mind, or was it just?
Becky, I think it was an overreaction, and ultimately, Andrew really hit the pressure point on the head, and I just want to zero in on that. What's at play here is this treatment that Tesla, or Waymo for that matter, may have with the federal government, NHTSA specifically, in terms of making it easier for autonomous vehicles to become widespread. And this, of course, was the impetus for Tesla's move in valuation, $900 billion today. And that's why the stock is down, that's somehow put in jeopardy because of what happened yesterday. But my view that this is an overreaction comes from a position that ultimately I think that the president wants to do what is right for the country, despite I think all the personalities between the two and wanting to get a kind of a one-upsmanship. I think that the president does want to do what's right for the country. And when you think about AI and this arms race, I mean, undoubtedly this a new frontier in terms of global power. And the physical AI piece is one manifestation of that. And the most obvious example of that is going to be with autonomy. So just to kind of play this forward, let's take the position that Trump is more punitive to Elon. It makes it more difficult for autonomous. And then we look around and we see autonomous vehicles in China everywhere. I'm fast forwarding 1 to 5 years from now. And in Europe and the rest of the world, it would be a little bit odd, I think, for this personality blow up to really slow down that pace of innovation. And so ultimately, I think that what is best for the country is for autonomy to move forward. And I think that means that this is going to continue to move forward. Obviously comes at a big time with Tesla next week and what we're going to hear from Austin.
You know, Gene, I think really looking through it, though, there were questions that people were trying to get to immediately. The government contracts, the permissions that he needs, not only for autonomous driving, but for anything else he wants to do down the line with robots and other issues, for that to get kind of rolled out. If you're sure that this is an overreaction, would you be buying this today? Are you buying this stock today?
So I own Tesla personally. I'm going to continue to own it. Ultimately, is that this robotics, the government piece, is really important for SpaceX. It's really not important for Tesla. I think that the implications in terms of what happens with Optimus and the government being a big buyer of Optimus, I think is small to the opportunity within industrial robotics. And so, yes, I am a buyer here. I'm a buyer in part because I think that on the margin, while the RoboTaxi rollout slow initially, starting to gain some momentum in Austin, it won't be perfect by any measure, but I think it will speak to a very simple truth, which is autonomous vehicles are safer and people do prefer them. They don't like actually talking to their Uber driver. They do prefer autonomous. And so I think that as we kind of play this forward, I believe that that's more than $1 trillion opportunity. And again, the stock just below or just around 900 billion in market cap.
So the futures closed lower and then futures are trading higher here. That came after President Trump hinted at a possible reconciliation with Elon Musk following a public spat that everyone here saw, the theater, as we described it earlier. In an interview with Politico on Thursday, Trump was unfazed about the question on his feud with Musk, stating, "Oh, it's okay. I know that this kind of shocked some folks, didn't shock others. Quote, it's going very well. Never done better." End quote. The trolling level is just so good in this whole thing.